Yeah. I mean, do you want me to start from why I'm in Colorado? Where do you want me to start? How I was born?
I'll let you yeah, let's how do you end up to in your journey?
Yeah, in my journey. I think from a journey standpoint, I was a lifelong athlete and always into health and fitness. And when I was done with school and done with sports, um, I started working in the pet industry right away, and not knowing, as most don't, about nutrition for pets. There's a lot of uncertainty and lack of knowledge in that field. And so all of the things that we should be doing for people, eating better food, real food, exercising regularly, and just quality of life things that we don't think about for our pets as much. I started learning about, and then I started learning about the whole industry of pet products and just how things are formulated. The good companies, the companies not doing it so efficiently and above board, and then how much we lack in really caring for our pets' nutrition. And so that was kind of the basis for me to start looking at,
Mm,
much more in depth into the nutrition side of pets.
right.
Uh, because I felt like, we make these decisions for them. So our animals are kind of part of our extended family. So if we're going to make that decision, we want to make sure it's the best, right?
Mhm.
So that kind of led me on the path of just taking care of my own animals. On top of trying to feed quality food to my family and just you know being healthier. So it all kind of came to a head when we adopted a family member had a dog named Kiva, and Kiva was a dog that was having multiple or cluster seizures. So she would have them over and over. And she was 13. Didn't know how much time we would have her for, but we figured we'd bring her in, give her some quality of life, feed her well. And if we have to make that tough decision, as most pet parents do, um, we could at least give her some quality of life before the end. So throughout that journey with her, we started discovering the benefits of cannabis. And that is where we really saw a huge gap in where pets and people are using these plant-based medicines and can really benefit. And so at the time, it was very early on, 2014, 2015, when CBD was just starting to come up. So being in Colorado and having a lot of friends in that industry, I started asking questions, and we started treating her with some just medicinal cannabis, and also just feeding her whole foods, fresh foods. And we were able to keep her around another year and a half, basically. So throughout that process of just helping my own family, doing all these things for ourselves and our pets, it's really put me on a journey of just health and wellness.
Wow. Yeah. A year and a half, that's quite the life extension, hey, for dogs. That's or for pets. That's
Yeah, you
yeah.
don't know. With animals, it's so hard, because you're torn in a lot of ways. You have this thought of like, that's my best friend,
Mm,
and they're in my family, and I don't want to have to make this tough decision to put them down. But at the same time, you have to have kind of this empathy and realize like they might be suffering and they can't tell us, they don't speak English.
mm.
So uh, a lot of times we might drag it on longer than we wanted to. And that's one thing I didn't want to do with Kiva or any of my dogs. I have a dog now with cancer. But you also have to read their demeanor and things like, them wanting to eat food still and wanting
Mm.
to go on walks and still being playful from time to time. Those are the little things that they can do to tell us that, hey, I'm still here, I'm still fighting. And that's what we did with Kiva. So it was,
Mm.
it was an experience.
Wow, that's awesome. Now I'm curious, since your business, right, Earth Buddy Pet, is specializing on hemp products
Yes.
for your pet for pets. So, it's no secret that with humans, hemp, cannabis, it gets a bad rap. So is there some kind of pushback as well in the animal industry, in the pet side of things?
Yes, there's quite a few. There's quite a few pushback points that I can speak to. I mean, you have the government in one breath of, how is the product labeled? What is actually in the product? Is it lab tested correctly?
Mm,
Then you have stigma of being cannabis, and then the marijuana side, with marijuana becoming more legal in more states. Everybody thinks you're trying to get your pet high. The great thing about cannabis, and the reason I'm calling it cannabis as opposed to just hemp or marijuana, is they're all from the same plant. Hemp and marijuana are from the same cannabis sativa family
mm,
genetics, and one is producing high THC and marijuana, and then the other one is producing high CBD. But the plant is not just producing these one things, just like, any fruit or vegetable we eat doesn't just have one vitamin or mineral in it. It has a whole host of things. And so when we grow hemp, we grow it for its high CBD content, but we also have all these other valuable ingredients in there. And that's kind of back to your question of, the stigma around it is the high CBD is a non-intoxicating plant as opposed to the THC, which is going to cause that high feeling.
mm,
So why there's been such a boom of CBD products and people using it for health and wellness, because it doesn't have this high causing effect that the marijuana plant does. Now with people, especially in their pets, again, I talked about it earlier, they're making the decision for them. So they're like, I don't want to get my pet high. I don't know if that's okay. One thing about, companies like ours is we have to go through some rigorous testing and also some guidelines and regulations here in the state of Colorado. So one,
mm,
have to work with the Department of Agriculture to show that we are growing high CBD hemp as opposed to marijuana. And then two, we have to lab test that at the end of harvest. And then we test it again in our finished products to show that there is less than 0.3% THC. So everything we do is really about creating quality of life in our products. But when it comes to safety, one of the things that a lot of my veterinary colleagues talk about is harm reduction. So the last thing we want to do is get an animal high. And that is not the point of our products. Like I said, it's a quality of life thing. So when we look at harm reduction, it's like at first do no harm. We don't need to have these, drastic doses and these wild claims that they're going to fix all these things in the animal. It's more about start small, go slow. And most pet owners know their pets better than us. So we say, by using our suggested starting points, you can get a good idea if it's helping with, things like stress or any kind of, achy joints. And those are visible things that we can see. And then from there, if there's any adverse side effects, we always say, back off or even stop use. So harm reduction
mm.
is part of the dosage conversation and whether pet parents are going to be okay with using it.
Yeah. So in your personal experience, what's been the biggest difference, the biggest impact that you've seen for our furry friends when they switch over to this type of product as opposed to the usual um medicinal stuff that they're exposed to?
I love the stories that we get back, and one in particular that always or lately has been jumping out. I have so many of them of
Mhm.
just pet stories and then just immediate friends and family. But one in particular, we work with a store up in Fort Collins, Colorado, and one of their staff had a dog that was dying. I think the dog might have been dying of cancer, and again, our product is not a cure. It's not going to prevent anything, but if we can create some quality of life, I mean, why not? And a lot of these pharmaceuticals, I have nothing against Western medicine, but a lot of times when the dog is so old and has cancer or has these severe issues, it's like, are we making them suffer more? Are we making them, is there a quality of life with that
Mhm.
drug? She basically made the choice to basically just go off of everything and give them our product. And she's like, I cannot believe how much my dog, their demeanor, she was happy, she was playing. before she passed. And I'll never forget it. I was doing a training for their staff, and she waited till after I was done and just didn't say anything, just gave me a big hug and was crying. And like, I started welling up with tears, and that specific, scenario and that situation is exactly why I do it. And
Mm.
I know exactly what she went through, how hard it is to lose a pet. It's devastating. It's just like losing a family member. There's nothing different, in my opinion. And the pain and the suffering that you go through in that time. And if we can be a small benefit to that animal towards the end of their life, that's completely worth it to me. And that's why we work so hard to explain our products and get on here and talk to anybody who will listen to us.
Wow, that's amazing. So now let's cross over to pet ownership. Like you mentioned earlier, sometimes we tend to make decisions for our furry friends without really tuning into to them. So what do you what is that? Oh, I can't find my words right now. So what would you say is the benefit of expressing your own vulnerability to when it comes to pet ownership? Do pets actually tune into your energy as well?
Oh, I love that question. So yeah, that was perfect. So I think, well, I don't think, I think we know without a shadow of a doubt that our pets absorb our stress. So if we are anxious and we come in the house after a long day of work and we're stressed out and we're carrying all these issues, especially right now, holy cow, we have a pandemic, we have all this divide in the country, we have, the death of George Floyd. I mean, this is really relevant stuff. So, we're carrying that weight in front of our pets, and they're with us whenever we're home. So they're going to absorb that stress, and they have no idea why we're stressed. Again, they don't understand English and they don't speak English. So they can absorb that. And I really think that can be a detriment to our pet's health. So it's extremely important, to your question, for us to be healthy,
Mm.
both mentally and physically, as much as we can possibly be, because if we're not that strong mentally or physically, we really are hurting our pets too, because they're going to absorb a lot of that. They're going to see that and they're going to feel that. If everything you have to do for your animal is reluctant and, oh, I got to feed them, or, oh, I got to walk them, or I got to do that chore for them, they're going to feel that. And all dogs, especially, cats are a whole different topic. We can get into cats. But all dogs, especially, is all they want to do is be with their owner. They're alpha. They want to have that affection from you, and they want to be a part of your life. And that's a lot of time just means sitting with them and petting them and just being involved. So having a good, stable mental attitude and trying to be, that leader for them is
Mm.
really important. So from a vulnerability standpoint, they sense our sadness too. I've lost family and been sad and devastated by that, lost friends and things. And, my dog came right up to me during that time. And that's a huge, thing right now, with service dogs, especially. We're starting to see more service dogs and how they can benefit people emotionally. I know some of them are called emotional support dogs, but I think they all have value. I think every dog and every cat is an emotional service pet.
Mm. Yeah. So what do you think is the biggest thing that pet owners miss when it comes to their relationship with their furry friends?
I'll switch back to the food side. I think
Mm.
nutrition is so important. I think, you know, I see families that are extremely healthy, feed all organic to their kids and their family, and they do everything right, exercise wise. And then they'll go to the big box grocery store and buy a giant bag of potato chips, basically, that's for a dog or for a cat. And it's just so backwards, because again, we know what's good for us. We know that we should eat more whole food and less processed food, and we know we should exercise, but that's our choice if we're not going to do that. I'm fine with that. But when we make it for a pet, that's the thing that I'm like, you're making, this is the choice that you have to make for them. And they don't have any choice otherwise. They'll eat whatever you give them usually, especially dogs. They won't starve themselves.
Mhm.
So why not give them the best food possible and budget for it too? I think sometimes we think, oh, we can just buy them the cheapest stuff. We adopted the dog for cheap, so we're going to feed them the cheapest stuff. And it's just, I think that's the biggest miss that we have as pet parents, is like, you have to feed your pets better. We're just a supplement line in my company, so we're not going to be like a nutritionally balanced product that they can just feed all the time.
Mhm.
We're there to supplement a lot of products. And one thing that we see time and time again is if they're feeding a high quality diet or a more whole food, less processed diet, our products are much more effective. So I think when it comes to pet parents and what they miss is just feeding better food, knowing more about pet nutrition. And there's so much information out there that they can find. And we're starting to, show more resources for that as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's awesome. Well, Sean, thank you so much. First things first, gotta acknowledge you for the stand that you are, providing better health and life for our furry friends. So thank you for that. And thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
It was really enjoyable. And
Yeah.
yeah, if anybody wants to check us out, we're at Earth Buddy
There you
Pet
go.
on everything.
Yeah. Earth Buddy Pet. That's
Yes.
Instagram, Facebook, and
Yes.
your website as well. Okay.
Our website, earthbuddypet.com as well. So yeah.
All right, awesome. Well, we'll add all that to the show notes. Awesome. Well, Sean, thank you so much again. This episode, I'm currently reshuffling